Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into one of the stickiest, sweatiest summers history ever offered. No, it's not some medieval battlefield or a tropical pirate port. We're heading to Edo, Japan, sometime in the mid-18th century, just as the rainy season ends and the air gets thick enough to chew. It's hot, it's humid, and absolutely everyone is wearing too many layers. This isn't a Tokyo summer with vending machines and air-conditioned cafes. No, this is a time when straw sandals squish with each step, fans become your best friend, and communal wells are the closest thing to a cold shower. You, my friend, are about to find out why you wouldn't last 3 days in this setting. At least, not without a complaint scroll a mile long. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it over there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in Edo just as the sun begins to bake the tiled roofs and dirt roads. The city's alive with the sound of wooden sandals slapping against the earth, dogs barking in alleys, and merchants already shouting about pickled daikon before breakfast. You're already sweating. Of course you are. It's 91 degrees Fahrenheit with about 1,000% humidity, and you're dressed like a polite cloud. Linen undergarments, a cotton kimono, and a sash that feels like a sauna belt. Your feet are tucked into waraji, rope sandals made from rice straw, which sound poetic until they soak up street water and turn into moist flaps that squish with each step. The streets, by the way, are alive. Not in a metaphorical sense, but in a crawling, buzzing, mildly alarming way. Cats dart between houses. Beetles the size of dumplings lumber across stones. And there's a distant but constant drone of something. Cicadas, probably. Or maybe just the sound of your soul melting. A man walks past you pushing a cart full of charcoal, and it leaves a faint trail of soot in the air. Behind him is a child carrying what looks like a basket of small eels. No one seems bothered. Not by the heat, not by the smell, not by the fact that every breath you take has the texture of lukewarm miso. And then there's the city itself. Tightly packed rows of wooden buildings with sliding paper doors. They lean a little with age, like old men dozing under straw hats. Everything looks ready to burst into flames at the mere mention of the word spark. This is not paranoia. Fires were such a regular occurrence here that they earned nicknames like the Blossoms of Edo. Charming, until you realize the petals were mostly ash and collapsed homes. But back to you. You're trying to look local, which is a challenge considering you've already tripped on your own Geta sandals twice. A group of children giggle as they pass by. One even points at the sweat pooling in your collar and says something you hope was affectionate. It wasn't. You duck into a side street looking for shade and find only more heat, trapped like a jealous spirit between buildings. You're beginning to understand why people in Edo-era Japan walked slowly, not out of laziness, but as a form of tactical survival. Sudden movement leads to sudden death by perspiration. A woman walks past carrying a parasol made of oiled paper, and for a fleeting moment, you consider mugging her for it. You don't, obviously, because you're a decent time traveler, and also because she's probably better at hand-to-hand combat than you. You wander deeper, past shops with signs painted in flowing calligraphy. One smells of ink and cedar, probably a print shop. Another reeks gloriously of grilled fish and vinegar, definitely a food stall. But you're distracted. Your straw sandals are beginning to disintegrate. Your inner robe is sticking in places no fabric should. And your sense of direction has betrayed you completely. Eventually, you find a wooden bench and flop down like a very sweaty ghost. A nearby dog eyes you with suspicion. Two old men sip tea in silence and do not acknowledge your collapse. This is Edo, beautiful, chaotic, and utterly uninterested in your suffering. And then it hits you, literally, a smell. A wave of something both ancient and aquatic drifts in on the breeze. It's the canal, of course. Edo's vast network of waterways is as vital to city life as its wooden bridges and gossip. And in summer, those canals, well, they don't hold back. Some historians say the combination of fish guts, algae, human waste, and rotting bamboo was enough to make even the toughest samurai will wrinkle a nostril. Others claim it just added character to the neighborhood. You breathe through your mouth. It helps. A little. To distract yourself, you look up. The sky is brilliant, so blue it hurts, with clouds painted like brushstrokes across the top of the world. Swallows dart between rooftops. Laundry flaps on balconies. And above it all, the towering silhouette of Edo Castle watches the city like a stone-faced parent who's given up on bedtime rules. Somewhere nearby, a bell rings. It's the neighborhood's fire watch patrol, reminding everyone to douse their hearths and not sneeze too hard near the wooden walls. You imagine your own house back home, its insulation, its ceiling fan, its glorious modern plumbing, and briefly consider building a time machine out of chopsticks in desperation. But no, you're here. It's summer. It's Edo, and the sun has only just begun its climb. Welcome to the past. You'll probably want to pace yourself, because the straw sandals are just the beginning. You try not to breathe too deeply as you stand back up. The canal stench has woven itself into the very air, and your straw sandals now squish with every step, like walking on wet crackers. You're starting to suspect that Edo's real seasonal delicacy isn't grilled eel or pickled plum, but shared public suffering. You decide to follow a group of locals heading down a narrow alley, hoping they know something you don't. They do. They're going to work, and they seem very practiced at ignoring the heat. A man with a conical hat strides confidently ahead, wooden geta clacking, while a woman balances a tray of tofu on her head, without a single bead of sweat betraying her calm. You look like a towel that was left out in the rain. As you round a corner, a new wave of sensory confusion washes over you. You've stumbled into a covered marketplace, where the smells get even stranger. There's vinegar, grilled fish, boiling soy, charcoal, miso, wet wood, and something sweet, maybe persimmon, or maybe rotting fruit. It's hard to tell when everything's marinating in the same 90% humidity. A vendor yells something cheerful. You pretend to understand and smile. He tosses you a rice ball wrapped in bamboo leaf, and you catch it like a confused cat. It's warm, not from being cooked, but from existing in the world too long. You take a polite bite. It's sticky, faintly fishy, and tastes like someone tried to smuggle a sea breeze into a lunchbox. You nod and bow. He laughs, perhaps because you've just eaten his sample display and not an actual purchase. You wander deeper into the street maze and then, boom, your nose hits something invisible. The smell is different now. Older, deeper, more complex. It's a scent that doesn't just arrive, it tells a story. The story goes like this. Once upon a time, someone fermented fish in a sealed barrel for 3 months, opened it, forgot about it, and now you live here. This is not a metaphor. You've discovered the magical, memorable, and mildly menacing smellscape of narazushi. For those who haven't had the pleasure, narazushi is an early form of sushi, rice and fish, fermented together with salt for long stretches of time until the fish achieves something between transcendence and rebellion. Some people say it tastes like blue cheese mixed with low tide. Others insist it's a delicacy that pairs beautifully with pickled garlic and a strong will to live. You wouldn't know. You can't even get past the smell. But the locals are lining up. A man dips his finger in the brine and licks it with reverence. A child bites into a slice of fish that looks like it's been aging since the Heian period. Everyone is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, you're having an out-of-body experience just from the scent. This isn't the city of your travel brochure. This is a full-bodied Edo, and the scent is its signature. Historians often debate whether Edo was one of the cleanest or dirtiest cities in pre-modern history. On one hand, the city had an advanced system for dealing with waste. Night soil collectors, regular bathhouses, and strict communal rules. On the other hand, that waste was often carted through the streets in open buckets. So, mixed reviews. You pass a man pushing one such cart. He whistles as he walks, cheerfully navigating around puddles of unknown origin. That bucket, you realize, contains more than just waste. It contains a cultural compromise. Edo people understood that odor was part of life, part of being close, part of being human. You try to adopt the same mindset. You even try to walk like them. Shoulders relaxed, pace unhurried, as if you too were a 300-year-old local who bathed in persimmon soap and made peace with the fish sauce horizon. You pass a communal notice board painted with ink so dark it looks alive. It displays warnings for the upcoming fire drills, a schedule for neighborhood cleaning, and a message that someone lost a sandal, again. A small paper talisman hangs beside it. For luck, maybe. Or maybe to distract from the fact that someone spelled fire with the wrong stroke again. And then you hear it. The bell. Soft, resonant, echoing through the alleys like a calm voice, calling you to attention. The local Henomiyaku, or fire patrol, walks past. Two men in simple blue robes carry lanterns and wooden rattles. Their job is simple but essential. Remind people not to burn the entire city down with their dinner stoves. "Hi no Yojin," one chants gently. "Watch for fire." It's not a threat. It's a lullaby, a ritual of responsibility. You suddenly realize just how precarious this whole city is. Thousands of wooden homes pressed together like kindling, lit by open flames, cooled by nothing more than shade and stubbornness. The patrol disappears around the corner, and the air thickens again. The sun is high now. Shadows shrink. Your robe feels like it's steamed onto your back. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve and immediately regret it. Now your sleeve is damp and smells faintly of fermented rice. You reach for your paper fan. It's folded neatly in your sash. You open it, expecting relief, and are promptly slapped in the face by the realization that fanning is a skill. Locals flick their fans with wrist-flicking elegance. You, however, look like someone trying to dry a sandwich with origami. You persist. Flap, flap. Eventually, you find a rhythm that cools your neck without dislocating your shoulder. You start to appreciate the small wins. A breeze rolls in, weak, lazy, but real, and with it comes a new scent. Sweet, dry, faintly smoky. Incense. Someone's burning sandalwood nearby, probably in a shrine just beyond the main road. You follow it. You're not sure why. Maybe you're hoping for shade. Maybe just for a new smell. Anything but fish sauce. You reach the edge of a small courtyard, where a low temple sits in the center. A stone basin of water shimmers under a pine tree. A few people bow, clap twice, and move on. It's quiet here, peaceful. Even the mosquitoes seem polite. You take a seat on a wooden bench in the shade. The cicadas scream above like tiny vibrating engines. Someone's tied a furin, a glass wind chime, to a nearby branch. It jingles gently with each shift of the air. For a moment, you forget your sandals are soaked. You forget you smell like pickled dreams. You forget that you're wearing 3 layers in August. You're just here, still sweating, still exhausted, but maybe adjusting? And then a mosquito bites your elbow. Welcome back. You slap your elbow. Too late. The mosquito is already gone, probably bragging to its friends about its foreign cuisine. You check your sleeve. A tiny welt is forming. Excellent. A souvenir. Still, you stay seated under the tree a little longer. The pine needles above you sway just enough to cast wobbly shadows across the dirt path. Someone walks past, their sandals soft against the ground, carrying a shallow tray of something that steams and smells like sweet bean paste. You contemplate following them, but your legs feel like boiled daikon, floppy, warm, and unsure of their purpose. Eventually, the chime of the furin reminds you, there are errands to run. Not yours, of course. You have no real responsibilities in this century, but there is water to be fetched, and your curiosity outweighs your comfort. Besides, you haven't had the pleasure of balancing a wooden bucket on a pole while navigating uneven streets. That seems educational. You rise, stretch, and head toward the sound of voices. Soon, you find the neighborhood well, round, stone-lipped, and surrounded by a half-circle of people doing what people do best in hot weather. Complain, compare mosquito bites, and pretend not to gossip. A woman in a faded indigo kimono pulls a rope slowly, bringing up a sloshing pail of water. A child holds out a cup. A man fans himself with a folded ledger. Everyone moves slowly. Everyone glistens. You queue up behind a cart stacked with laundry and wait your turn. The well smells faintly of iron and earth. Not unpleasant, not refreshing either. Just honest. When your turn comes, you're handed a ladle and expected to do something useful. You lower the bucket like you've seen others do, trying not to splash, trying not to look too foreign, trying not to imagine how this would go on your modern resume. Skills. Manual water retrieval, using rope-based pulley system. Specialty, medium success rate. You haul it up, muscles trembling slightly, and feel a small flicker of pride. A woman nods at you with the kind of smile people reserve for puppies doing tricks. You bow, try to act casual, and nearly trip over a clay pot. A common theme. You ladle a scoop of water into your mouth. It's lukewarm, slightly gritty, but better than the air. For a moment, you feel victorious, hydrated, connected to the daily rhythm of old Edo. And then someone behind you sneezes directly onto your neck. You tense, then laugh, then fan yourself with a speed that could launch small aircraft. Because here's the thing, no one tells you about communal wells. They're less like peaceful Zen rituals and more like summer block parties where everyone is sweaty and sharing germs generously. Still, you get it. The well is where stories are told, where news travels, where shoes are soaked, and where secrets occasionally float up from the bottom, like the eel that surfaced last month and made national gossip. Yes, apparently a minor eel incident can earn city-wide notoriety. According to a nearby woman with a remarkably expressive eyebrow, the eel was considered a sign of either divine displeasure or extremely good luck, depending on whom you ask. Some say it was the ghost of a jilted bathhouse attendant. Others say it just really liked buckets. Scholars remain divided. You try to help carry a smaller child's water pail, but are immediately scolded for offending the bucket's balance. You bow your apologies, twice. The child bows back, with perfect form, then smirks and walks off like a tiny sensei. The water-fetching portion of your day complete, you follow the sound of distant clattering to what seems to be a makeshift cleaning area. Laundry lines droop under the weight of damp cloth, and wooden washboards are leaned against barrels filled with grayish suds. A woman scrubs a pair of socks like she's trying to erase history. A man beats a futon with a bamboo stick so rhythmically, you begin to wonder if it's secretly a musical performance. And you? You are now the proud owner of a slightly damp rag and a mild sunburn. Welcome to Edo's Domestic Olympics, where every activity has at least 3 rules, 1 unspoken tradition, and a near certain chance of a backache. You find a corner where others are rinsing vegetables and quietly slide a cucumber under the flow. It floats away instantly. You retrieve it. Try again. Float, retrieve. This continues until an older man hands you a woven basket with a look that says, "Please stop offending physics." There's a certain joy in this place. Quiet, rhythmical, repetitive joy. Everyone does something. Everything has a season. Every season has a task. And even if those tasks leave you smelling like mildew and grilled turnip, there's something comforting about the predictability. But the weather, of course, is the great disruptor. A sudden clap of thunder rolls across the sky. Not loud, but enough to make everyone pause. Heads tilt, eyes scan the sky. The clouds are building, big, soft, and gray, like damp futons with bad intentions. You hear someone mutter, "Yudachi," and sure enough, the evening downpour isn't far off. The summer rain in Edo is fast, dramatic, and deeply inconsiderate. People begin packing up. Buckets are emptied. Laundry is rescued. A nearby child is still staring at the clouds like they owe him money. You duck under the overhang of a bathhouse roof. Just as the first fat drops fall, each one smacking the dusty street like punctuation marks. Within minutes, the world transforms. The smell sharpens. Wet wood, clean mud, hot stones suddenly cooled. The sound deepens. Raindrops on bamboo, on tile, on skin. And the air itself feels reborn, even if you're still soggy and itchy, and wondering how to keep your borrowed sash from unraveling. A cat darts under your bench. You nod in solidarity. Rainwater pours from rooftops in perfect little streams. Children run out barefoot to splash in puddles, robes hitched up, laughter cutting through the gray. Like paper lanterns in a storm. One slips and falls. No one panics. He gets up, soaked and smiling. You sit back and take it all in. The rain, the rhythm, the relief. And somehow, even in your clammy, mosquito-bitten, eel-terrified state, you begin to relax. The city exhales, and so do you. The rain doesn't last long. Summer downpours in Edo rarely do, but it leaves behind a gleaming city. Roof tiles glisten like black lacquer. Dirt streets become soft mud. Everything looks freshly rinsed, like the whole town took a bath while you weren't looking. You wait until the last drops taper off, then step out from under the bathhouse overhang. Your sleeves are damp from where you hug them against your chest, and your straw sandals have evolved into something between a sponge and a curse. Still, there's a strange sense of relief in your bones. Like the city let out a long sigh and decided to be quiet for a moment. Until, of course, the Hinomiyaku patrol appears again, this time ringing a soft bell and murmuring fire precautions. Because while rain is welcome, it doesn't erase the ever-present anxiety that the whole place might go up in flames at any moment. You follow them for a bit, mostly because they seem to know where the dry patches are. The two men walk with calm precision, tapping wooden clappers as they pass. It's not aggressive, more like a gentle reminder that, yes, your house is made of dried dreams and kindling, so please don't roast your dinner too enthusiastically. You duck into a side alley and nearly bump into a rack of fire buckets. Dozens of them, hung like oddly shaped hats on pegs outside every home. They're painted black with the household crest or a brushstroke character, most commonly shui, water. Some are worn and chipped, others polished like they belong in an art exhibit. This, you realize, is the Ido version of home insurance. There are no fire hydrants, no hoses, just communal responsibility and quick reflexes. Each neighborhood has its own hakishi, or firefighting team. These men aren't just bucket passers, they're local celebrities. Picture the vibe of 18th century rock stars with ladders. They wear heavy coats even in summer, not because they enjoy sweating, Though maybe they do, historians are unclear. But because the coats are soaked in water before a fire to protect them from flames. The most flamboyant among them, the Machibikeshi, even perform acrobatic stunts while fighting fires, scaling rooftops, waving flags, directing bucket chains like sweaty, soot-covered conductors. You stop outside a communal notice board where hand-painted posters advertise an upcoming Heikeishi demonstration. Children crowd around it, pointing at the caricatures of firemen doing handstands on beams. One kid asks his friend if he thinks firefighters can fly. The friend shrugs. Probably. You'd buy a ticket if it weren't 1753, and currency was a pocketful of rice. Nearby, a group of adults chat under an awning. Their topic? A fire that broke out 3 neighborhoods over last week. It was the dried squid merchant, says one. Left his brazier burning while he chased a rat. Or his cat, another suggests. Or his wife, offers a third, a little too cheerfully. You listen, fascinated. Everyone seems to have a theory, none of them verified. As always, Edo thrives on a healthy balance of suspicion and storytelling. The clouds begin to break, and late afternoon light filters through the humid haze. The city warms again, not as fierce as earlier, but enough to steam the streets like a noodle pot. You press on, curious about what comes next. Eventually, you find yourself at a small elevated structure with a bell tower. A boy stands underneath it, peering up. You ask what he's doing, and he tells you, completely seriously, that he's practicing to be a fire watch bell ringer. Apparently, there's a proper rhythm to it. 1 clang for spotting smoke, 2 for a confirmed fire, 3 for a full-blown panic. You ask what happens after 3. He shrugs. Everyone runs. You admire the honesty. You continue down a broader street where houses are built with wide eaves and open shutters. Laundry hangs from the beams. Potted plants cluster near doorsteps. A grandmother fans herself while watching over her pickles, fermenting in a ceramic jar. She gives you a look that says, "You're sweating too much for someone not doing anything." She's not wrong. You spot a wooden tablet nailed to a post. It reads like a list of fire commandments. No open flames after sunset, no fireworks within town limits, no cooking on rooftops, which, frankly, raises more questions than it answers. Each rule is brushed with a firm, yet somehow exasperated hand, as though the writer had to enforce these same rules last week, and the week before. Historians still debate the effectiveness of Edo's fire regulations. On one hand, the city burned frequently. On the other, the response was often impressively coordinated. Fires were treated like communal events. People helped neighbors, gathered at meeting spots, and shared food with those who lost homes. You get the sense that living here meant living close, not just physically, but emotionally. You couldn't afford to be a bad neighbor in a city that might rebuild itself by next Thursday. A man walks past carrying a ladder over his shoulder, nods politely, and vanishes around a corner. You wonder if he's a carpenter, a fireman, or both. Maybe in Edo, you wear more than one hat. Especially if your house catches fire, and you need to rebuild it yourself. You reach a small intersection and pause. The sun is slipping lower, painting the buildings in orange and bronze. Smoke from cooking fires begins to rise, just a little, mingling with the scent of miso soup and grilled mackerel. Lanterns are being lit. Children are being herded inside. You sit on a low stone step and listen. There's the creak of a shutter, the jingle of a wind chime, the voice of someone singing, softly in the distance. Something about moonlight, plum blossoms, and a long-lost sandal. It's peaceful, even if you're still damp, itchy, and convinced that every mosquito in the city has memorized your blood type. And just as you close your eyes to enjoy the breeze, a neighbor sneezes again, right behind you, again. You're beginning to suspect sneezing was Edo's version of small talk. Or maybe it's just allergy season, hard to say. Either way, your personal space has been thoroughly and enthusiastically shared. You stand up and give your sleeve a polite dusting, not that it helps, and begin walking toward the source of a new sound. It's soft at first, like a whisper through bamboo, but it grows with every step, a rhythmic, wooden clack, not hurried, measured, ceremonial almost. As you round a corner, it becomes clear. It's a procession, or at least the start of one. Men in light summer yukata walk barefoot ahead of a palanquin, carrying long sticks topped with paper lanterns. Their steps are slow, dignified. One of them rings a small bell in time with their pace. Children appear from side alleys to watch. A few merchants pause mid-sale. Even the street dogs look mildly interested. You linger on the edge of the crowd, watching as the palanquin approaches. It's small, modest even, but intricately decorated with red lacquer and gold leaf clouds. Inside, you catch a glimpse of a woman, her face hidden by a half-lowered fan. Her kimono glows like summer rain, pale blue, embroidered with silver fish. No one claps, no one shouts, just soft murmurs of admiration and the ever-present background music of cicadas in full operatic mode. You lean over to ask someone what this is. The reply is whispered, as if too loud a voice might break the spell. A bride, on her way to her husband's family home. Ah, a summer wedding. And just like that, your dusty, sweaty day is interrupted by something delicate, something careful, something old and tender and practiced for generations. The procession moves on. The clacking fades. A child sneezes nearby. Balance is restored. As you continue your walk, you notice the lanterns appearing in doorways now. One by one. Some are round and red, others square and paper-thin. They bob in the evening breeze like sleepy jellyfish. The light inside each is a soft golden flame, steady, but never still. You pass a group of women tying their hair up with lacquered pins. One carries a basket filled with tiny cloth purses. Another adjusts her obi with the kind of casual grace that suggests she's done this 1,000 times and could do it better in the dark, during an earthquake, while holding a gourd of sake. You're not sure where you're headed anymore. The streets twist and curl like calligraphy. Every turn looks familiar and strange. But the air smells sweeter now. Less fish sauce, more plum wine and grilled skewers. Somewhere in the distance, a flute begins to play. And then you see it. A small gathering under strings of lanterns next to a shallow canal. The lights reflect off the water like flickering stars. People are laughing, lounging, sipping tea. A street musician plucks a shamisen with fingers so fast they blur. Welcome to the unofficial heart of any Edo summer evening, the riverbank. You find a quiet spot on a wooden bench, grateful for the coolness rising from the canal. Beside you, a man offers you a folded fan with a chrysanthemum painted on one side. You nod your thanks and attempt a few delicate waves. Success. You don't injure yourself or anyone else. Progress. A little girl skips past with a dragonfly caught gently in her hands. She crouches by the water and lets it go. It hovers for a moment, confused, like all great poets, then darts away into the reeds. Another man sits down beside you. He has the easy posture of someone used to waiting. His clothes are simple, but clean. His eyes scan the crowd, not in suspicion, but like he's memorizing something beautiful. You ask what he's watching for. Fireflies, he says. Soon. And sure enough, just as he says it, a single light flickers near the reeds, then another, and another, until the air begins to glow in tiny pulses, green, gold, soft as whispers. It's calming, hypnotic, like the city is blinking slowly, ready for sleep. People begin lighting incense sticks, not for ceremony, but for the smell. The mix of sandalwood and citronella is oddly comforting. You wonder if it's working, or if the mosquitoes are just pausing to enjoy the view. The man beside you sighs contentedly. "Best part of summer," he says. "Even the ghosts stay quiet tonight." You glance at him. He's not joking. Which brings you to another part of Edo life you hadn't yet explored. The spiritual. Because summer, for all its sweat and pickled chaos, is also the season of ghosts. Not the Hollywood kind, of course. These ghosts are more poetic, quieter, sometimes sad, sometimes lonely, sometimes a little mischievous, like that one ghost who kept untying people's sandals in the old rice district. The town eventually made a shrine for him. Problem solved. "Some say they live in the heat," the man continues, "that it draws them out, makes them restless." You nod as if this makes perfect sense, Wake, because by now it kind of does. The lights dim. A child yawns. Somewhere nearby, a mother calls her son home, using his full name like a spell. You close your eyes for just a second, and when you open them again, the man is gone. Or maybe he never sat down, but your fan is still in your hand. You rise from the bench, gently, as if the night might shatter if you move too fast. Your legs creak. Your robe rustles. Fireflies guide your path like soft little stars. And the thought occurs to you, maybe this city isn't trying to survive summer at all. Maybe it's just learning how to glow through it. You wake up to shouting. Not the panicked kind. Not even the urgent kind. Just loud, rhythmic, strangely cheerful shouting, like someone trying to narrate their own life in haiku form. You roll over, still curled under the thin summer futon someone graciously lent you the night before, and peek through the open paper screen. Sunlight floods the room with soft gold, illuminating floating dust motes like tiny spirits mid-conference. Outside, the shouting grows louder, and then you hear the wooden wheels. Ah, the night soil collector has arrived. You sit up slowly, your shoulders aching from sleeping on a futon thinner than a sheet of nori. Your neck cracks. Your knees pop. You feel approximately 400 years old, which, for Edo, might make you a young adult. You shuffle toward the sound, pushing aside the door just enough to peer out into the narrow alley. There he is, the man of the hour, pushing a cart that can only be described as heroically unfortunate. Two wooden barrels, side by side, sloshing ominously with each bump in the road. He whistles, he waves, he smells. Determined. This is not a garbage collector. This is an essential worker in every possible way. In Edo, human waste is valuable, used as fertilizer and sold to farmers outside the city. It's called shimogoe, or fertilizer from below. And yes, that's the polite version. There are even contracts between neighborhoods and farmers for exclusive rights. You had no idea your bodily functions could be considered economic assets. You glance over your shoulder at the small wooden toilet cubicle you used the night before. It has a hole, a bucket, and a tiny paper charm tacked to the wall for smell protection. You now realize it's about as effective as putting a ribbon on a volcano. Still, it worked. The man nods at your household as he collects the bucket, mutters a prayer, and sloshes off with the cart. Behind him, two boys carry a smaller version of the same setup and chat about sumo wrestlers. One of them steps in something. No one panics. Edo is not a city for clean freaks. You're invited to join breakfast by the family that's been sheltering you. It's informal. Everyone squats around a low wooden table, and there's a steaming pot of miso soup, a small bowl of rice for each person, pickled radish, and something that looks suspiciously like yesterday's leftover grilled mackerel, or the one from last week, It's unclear. You're not offered tea. You're offered barley water, mugi cha, cold, slightly bitter, and surprisingly refreshing. One sip and your internal organs send a thank you note. Conversation is quiet, respectful, and mostly about the heat. The father mentions his neighbor's son fainted yesterday while hauling water. The mother tuts and says, "They don't soak the towels enough." The daughter fans herself and whispers that she saw the ghost of the laundry boy in the alley. Everyone nods, like that's just part of the weather report. You try the pickles. They fight back, aggressively. There's a flavor in there that feels both smoky and sour, like a grilled lemon that's seen things. You politely chew and then chew some more. Your host offers you a second helping. You pretend not to hear. After breakfast, you're invited to help empty the bathwater. Edo's homes often have their own tiny wooden tubs, but water is precious. Reused, repurposed, and rarely wasted. Today's used bathwater goes to rinsing laundry, and later, possibly watering plants, or the neighbor's pig. Everything cycles. Nothing is wasted. You carry a ladle and learn the art of dumping without splashing. You fail spectacularly, soaking your left sandal and the sleeve of your already soggy robe. The daughter giggles. You bow in apology to the sandal. The sandal forgives you. A sudden wind picks up, and everyone pauses. The breeze, though faint, is a blessing. The house sighs. The paper walls flutter slightly. Somewhere, a shoji screen creaks. You can almost hear the city leaning into the moment, like it knows how rare cool air can be. But peace doesn't last long. Because next comes the Chonekai. That's the neighborhood association, a kind of community task force that organizes everything from trash sorting to festival cleanup. Today, they're here to check fire buckets and remind households to restock their emergency pickled radish, essential for morale, obviously. An elderly man with impossibly bushy eyebrows reads from a scroll. Everyone nods at appropriate moments. He pauses to cough dramatically, and a boy hands him a sip of vinegar water. You clap along when everyone else does. You are still unsure what exactly just happened, but you've been volunteered to help carry tatami mats for some kind of midsummer event. You accept, because saying no in Edo seems harder than hauling carpets. You spend the next half hour dragging straw mats from one house to another under the direction of two very tiny women who have the energy of caffeinated thunder gods. One of them wears a towel around her neck that looks older than you. The other critiques your grip in the same tone one might use to discuss tragic poetry. You sweat. You bow. You sweat again. The mats are heavier than expected, and full of prickly straw that seems designed to exfoliate you emotionally. You begin to understand why people in woodblock prints always look mildly exasperated. They probably just moved to Tommy. After the job is done, you're rewarded with a triangle of onigiri, wrapped in seaweed and stuffed with pickled plum. It's simple, tart, perfect. You eat in silence next to a man who's been sweeping the same spot for 20 minutes. He nods at you and continues sweeping. You nod back and keep chewing. A dog walks by with a sandal in its mouth. No one reacts. And you realize this is the rhythm of Edo. It's not glamorous. It's not convenient. It's not even particularly clean. But it is alive, shared, sweaty, efficient in the most roundabout, poetic way possible. The man finishes sweeping. He bows to the spot he cleaned. You figure that's your cue. You rise, stretch, feel a new bug bite blooming near your ankle. And as you look down the alley lined with clay pots, drying nets, and someone's discarded eel bones, you realize something. This city doesn't care whether you survive its summer. It just wants you to show up, do your part, and maybe, if you're lucky, learn how to whistle like the guy with the cart full of poop. The afternoon is doing that thing, where it tries to sneak up on you slowly, warming everything again after the rain, thickening the air until even your eyelashes feel sweaty, and casting long shadows that seem to sigh across the street. You wipe your brow with a damp sleeve and head in the direction of something you overheard earlier, the bathhouse ballet. No, it's not a real performance, but it might as well be. The neighborhood Sento, public bathhouse, is a cornerstone of Edo life, equal parts hygiene, gossip hub, and unspoken social arena. Every street seems to have one, tucked between houses like a polite secret. You're told it's a must-do experience for any visitor. You are, however, not told about the sequence of increasingly humbling rituals that come with it. You arrive outside just as someone pours a bucket of steaming water down the drainage path. It flows past your feet with an ominous hiss. A wooden sign above the curtain reads, "Men to the left, women to the right." The curtain sways slightly. You duck beneath it. Instantly, you're hit with a wall of humidity. So dense, it should pay rent. It smells faintly of cedar, citrus, and the accumulated size of 1,000 tired bodies. A man greets you with a quick bow behind the reception desk. You return the bow, offer a few copper coins, and are handed a folded towel and a look that says, "You have no idea what you're doing, do you?" Correct. You step into the changing room, which is basically a wooden box with cubbies for clothes and dignity. You untie your sash, trying to remember which end goes where, and quickly realize that Edo etiquette does not leave room for modesty. No swimsuits, no cover-ups. Just you, your towel, the size of a napkin, and the slow, inevitable acceptance of total nudity. You walk into the main bathing chamber with all the confidence of a cat in a thunderstorm. The room is beautiful, in a simple way. Polished wood, soft candlelight, and a central bath that steams like a dragon's sigh. Around the edges, people sit on low stools, scrubbing with small buckets and brushes. No one speaks above a whisper. It's not exactly quiet, but it feels respectful, almost holy. You sit on a stool. It creaks under you, and everyone pointedly does not look. You grab a ladle and start rinsing. The water is warm, not hot. The kind of warmth that makes you exhale out of your eyelids. You begin to understand why people in Edo take baths multiple times a day during summer. Not because it gets you clean, but because it reminds you that your bones are still part of the plan. You scrub with the small bar of soap they've provided, made of rice bran and something vaguely lemony, and manage to splash your neighbor once. He nods with a smile. You apologize with a bow so deep you nearly slip off the stool. Once you're clean, or close enough, you approach the main bath. Steam rolls over the surface like a quiet storm. You dip one toe in and immediately yank it back out. It's hot. Not refreshing spa hot. Not cozy tea hot. This is boil the sins from your soul. Hot. You look around. Everyone else is sitting in the water like it's a mild afternoon in a lily pond. One man even sighs happily and dips his towel in, wringing it over his shoulders like he's watering a bonsai tree. You try again, lowering yourself inch by inch until your entire body is submerged and your brain briefly leaves your skull in protest. Your ears ring, your toes curl, your vision blurs slightly. And then, peace. Warm, encompassing, ridiculous peace. Your muscles melt. Your spine forgets it has responsibilities. You float. Not physically, but spiritually. And for a moment, you believe that if you just stayed here forever, the mosquitoes would never find you again. A soft splash beside you announces the arrival of another bather, an older man with more wrinkles than a weathered scroll. He doesn't speak, just settles in and closes his eyes. His towel rests folded on top of his head like a sleeping cat. You do the same. Towel on head, eyes closed, breathing steady. Minutes pass. Or hours, or possibly days. Eventually, Someone coughs politely. A subtle reminder that you've been hogging the best corner of the bath for a suspiciously long time. You nod, bow slightly in the water, and carefully haul yourself out. Your legs wobble. Your skin is the color of a boiled turnip. You rinse one final time before heading back to the changing room. Your robe somehow feels even heavier now. Your towel is less of a drying tool and more of a philosophical metaphor. You step outside. The sun is low. The air is warm, but not hostile. Cicadas sing from the rooftops. Your skin feels clean, flushed, and vaguely ancestral. You walk slowly, not because you're trying to be poetic, but because your limbs no longer believe in velocity. And just as you turn the corner, a sudden gust of wind blows a cloud of dust directly into your freshly rinsed face. Welcome back. Still, there's something different now. The day's green, the noise, the minor humiliations, they feel softened, smoothed, like the wooden tubs in the bathhouse, worn down by use, but still holding warmth. You pass a small child arguing with a cat. You pass a woman gently brushing her kimono sleeves with a bundle of rice straw. You pass a man asleep on a bench, his fan still waving in his hand like a truce flag. Everything's still alive, still sweating, still swatting bugs. But so are you. And maybe that's the point. You wake up from a nap you don't remember starting. The sun has dipped below the rooftops, casting everything in a soft, amber glaze. The air is thick with that peculiar late summer stillness, where the day hasn't ended, but has clearly given up. You're lying on a wooden bench outside a tea house, the kind of place that serves lukewarm barley water and answers in half smiles. Your fan, still tucked into your obi, is slightly bent. Your sandals have slipped halfway off your feet. A droplet of something unidentifiable clings to your sleeve, and someone nearby is enthusiastically describing an eel that looked like it held secrets. You sit up slowly, blinking, your body humming with the kind of heat exhaustion that feels strangely triumphant. Ahead of you, a cluster of people is forming. A festival is brewing. Tonight is Bon Odori, the summer dance. A night when the living and the dead gather in the same plaza to exchange glances, gossip, and maybe a few missteps to the rhythm of taiko drums. You drift toward the sound like a moth toward polite chaos. The plaza is modest. A raised wooden platform in the center holds a trio of musicians dressed in matching happy coats, each with the stamina of a caffeinated mountain. One pounds a drum with solemn joy. Another plucks a shamisen like it's a ticking clock. The third sings in a nasal, high-pitched voice that feels oddly right, like a cicada reciting poetry. Around them, lanterns glow from tall bamboo poles, casting warm circles of light that ripple across the faces of the dancers below. They move in a slow, looping pattern, arms swaying, hands fluttering, feet shuffling in rhythmic unison. It's not about flair. It's about presence, repetition, reverence. You step in, or rather, you're gently pulled in by a woman with gray-streaked hair and the confidence of someone who's danced this loop since before you were born in a completely different century. She shows you the steps. 2 to the left, raise the arms, clap once, shuffle, turn, repeat. You try, you fail, you try again. A child giggles at you and nearly trips while bowing mid-dance. You're doing great. This isn't just dancing, this is an invocation. A memory held by feet, and just when you begin to lose yourself in the movement, you feel it, that peculiar weight in the air, like someone brushing past you who isn't entirely there. This is Bon, after all. A time when ancestors return, not with drama or dread, but with gentle amusement. A paper lantern floats past, carried by the wind. You think you see a face in it. Probably just the light. Probably. You step back from the dance to catch your breath and find yourself at a food stall. The vendor offers you a skewer of grilled mochi, its surface blistered and sticky. You take a bite. It's warm, smoky, sweet, with soy sauce. It sticks to your teeth like a memory. You nod in approval. Behind you, laughter. Someone's yukata has come undone mid-twirl. A friend rushes to retie it with a look of mock scandal. Another child waves a paper fan with a hand-drawn ghost on it. Nearby, a tiny booth sells omikuji, fortune slips tied with string. You draw one and open it slowly. The kanji is smudged, the ink bled from humidity. You can only make out 3 words. Wind, memory, avoid pickles. Sounds about right. Historians still debate how seriously Edo residents took these fortunes. Some carried them like prophecy. Others used them to justify terrible romantic decisions. You wisely decide to avoid any brined vegetables for the rest of the evening, just in case. As the night deepens, fireflies return, blinking slowly over the riverbanks. The music slows. The dancers fade one by one, bowing, waving, drifting off into the alleys. A child falls asleep in his father's arms. An elderly man wraps his shoulders in a towel and hums a song too old for history books. You wander toward the edge of the plaza, where a small stone shrine sits beneath a ginkgo tree. It's unassuming. No grand statues or bright banners. Just a basin, a bell, and a pile of incense sticks glowing like distant stars. You offer a bow, not because you know the ritual, but because it feels right. A wind stirs the leaves, a faint bell rings, and suddenly, you're alone with the quiet. But it doesn't feel empty. It feels full, saturated, like the city has layered itself over you. Sweat, soot, sandalwood, summer songs, and now carries you forward with its rhythm. You sit on the shrine's wooden step and let your legs dangle. Somewhere far off, someone plays a flute. The sound is thin, distant, but perfect. And in that moment, you understand why no one survives summer in Edo. Not because it's too hard, but because it's too much, too alive, too humid, too full of ghosts and fire and fermented things. It doesn't kill you, it remakes you. One sweaty, lantern-lit, pickle-adjacent evening at a time. Morning arrives reluctantly. It pushes itself into the world like a tired cat. Quiet, slow, and vaguely judgmental. You open your eyes to the sound of a rooster that seems far too enthusiastic about its job, and to the sensation of a mosquito having one final sip before clocking out. You slap blindly, miss, and stare at the ceiling, where a thin line of sunlight leaks through the bamboo blinds. Your futon is damp. Again, not from rain this time, but from the steady accumulation of sleep sweat, summer air, and the emotional weighted of last night's mochi. You rise with the grace of a badly folded fan. Outside, the city is already stirring. Edo doesn't believe in snooze buttons. You hear the thump of sandals on stone, the creak of water buckets, the clack of chopsticks being counted for breakfast. There's a faint aroma of miso rising, blending with something sweet. Perhaps stewed plums, or maybe that slightly suspicious rice syrup candy you saw being boiled in a copper pot the night before. You stretch, yawn, and make your way to the narrow street. And that's when you hear it. The shouting. Not aggressive, not angry, just emphatic, musical. You follow it around the corner and see them, a team of street vendors, pushing carts and singing their wares in stylized, rhythmic chants. One offers grilled sweet potatoes, his voice low and gravelly. Another sells goldfish in tiny bowls, using a melody so cheerful it feels like a lullaby in reverse. A woman with a towering hat calls out something about pickled ginger, her pitch rising at the end like a question nobody dares answer. You stand there, blinking. It's like a very slow parade where the floats sell snacks. You walk alongside the sweet potato man for a few minutes. His cart is a tiny furnace on wheels with coals glowing red under a metal grate. The potatoes hiss and crack as they roast. He offers you one wrapped in paper, piping hot, sweet as molasses, and impossible to eat without burning your fingertips. You eat it anyway, because this is Edo, and breakfast is wherever you catch it. Further down the street, you hear a familiar jingle, the soft metallic chime of the tofu seller. His cart is small, his hat enormous, and he moves with the serene determination of someone who has accepted his life will always smell slightly of soybean curd. He pauses at every corner, ringing a bell that sounds like distant wind chimes. Housewives emerge from doorways to exchange coins and gossip. You pause by a bridge and watch the flow of life below. A boatman navigating a shallow canal with a long pole, a woman washing vegetables at the bank, two boys chasing a dog that clearly does not want to be chased. Everything has a rhythm, even the chaos. You're beginning to understand Edo time, not just hours and minutes, but the mood of the hour, the flavor of each moment. Early morning is for repetition and routine, for checking rice stalks and replacing incense ash. Midday is for hiding in shade and arguing over whose fan is more efficient. Evening is for lanterns and ghosts. And late night, that's for poetry and regret. You make your way toward Nihonbashi, the bustling commercial heart of the city. The bridge itself is grand, solid wood, wide enough for horses, carts, and several conversations at once. Beneath it, the water moves slowly, carrying the smell of tide and time. You pass under painted signs advertising everything from medicinal herbs to sake cups shaped like peaches. A man balances a tray of noodles on one hand while threading through the crowd. Another sells folding fans with crude haiku scrawled on the side. This summer heat has claimed my will to function. Send cold pickles. A woman pulls a portable puppet stage into the square. Children gather. A rice cake vendor nearby hands out free samples to keep them from stealing. One of the puppets begins dancing wildly. It looks exactly like how you feel inside. You stop for a bowl of zaru soba, cold noodles dipped in soy broth, served with grated daikon, and a dollop of wasabi strong enough to clear your ancestral memories. The vendor slurps next to you, offering no commentary, just a knowing glance when you inhale too much wasabi and hiccup like a haunted kettle. You're told this is a good sign. Historians still debate how people in Edo afforded street food so often. Some argue it was surprisingly cheap. Others believe people simply accepted that debt was inevitable, but delicious. In truth, the lines between vendor, cook, and philosopher were delightfully blurry. Many stalls offered more than meals. They offered conversation, refuge, and occasionally matchmaking advice. You pause by a stall selling ink and brushes. The owner tells you, without being asked, that black ink has moods. Some is meant for mourning, some for laughter. Some, he claims, can only be used on rainy Thursdays. You believe him. A beggar sits near the corner, playing a flute that's missing 2 notes. He doesn't seem to care. A dog dozes next to him, its ears twitching with each attempt at melody. Someone tosses a rice ball into the beggar's lap. He nods. The dog eats it. The air thickens again. The sun is higher now, and shadows are short. You feel the sweat returning, creeping slowly down your back like an awkward apology. You duck into an alley where a woman is weaving baskets with the speed of a magician. She glances up and says, "You're not from here." It's not a question. You nod. She hands you a smaller basket and says, "Make yourself useful." It's not a suggestion. You sit. You weave. You fail. She laughs. You laugh. The dog from earlier wanders in and steals your sandal. No one stops him, This is just how it goes. You lean against the wall, arms sticky, clothes damp, heart oddly full. Somewhere above, a kite flutters, shaped like a carp with paper eyes. And in that moment, you realize something important. You've stopped trying to survive Edo. You're starting to belong to it. By now, the sun feels like an acquaintance that overstayed its welcome. Not quite hostile, but definitely loitering. The air is syrup thick again. Your robe clings to your back like a second opinion, and your freshly woven basket is approximately the shape of a deflated hat. The basket weaver gently takes it from your hands and says, "Maybe don't quit your day job," before offering you a chilled plum from a clay jar. You bite into it. It's cold, sour, and wonderful, like being slapped by a very kind grandmother. You thank her, bow, and step back into the heat. The streets of Nihonbashi are shifting again. Morning's bustle has thinned into the drowsy lull of early afternoon. Stalls close temporarily. Some vendors nap right where they sit, shaded by umbrellas, or simply their own optimism. You follow the edge of the canal, curious, until you spot something odd. A group of men in uniformed robes, standing with posture far too straight for this heat. They're flanked by a tall parasol, embroidered with the crest of a powerful family. A small procession is forming. You edge closer. A palanquin rests beside the dock, shaded and lacquered, but not for a bride this time. This is official. One man holds a scroll, another holds a fan, a third holds absolutely nothing, but radiates the energy of a person deeply in charge of something vague and terrifying. And then the daimyo arrives. No horses, no trumpets, just the soft scuff of sandals and the gentle rustle of his silken robes. His face is unreadable, serene, alert, a little bored, like someone who knows exactly how much power he has but doesn't feel the need to raise an eyebrow about it. Everyone bows, deeply. You bow too, perhaps more than necessary, which draws a smirk from a nearby merchant. The daimyo steps into the palanquin without a word. The bearers lift it and move forward in practiced unison. The whole procession glides across the bridge and vanishes like smoke. You exhale. Someone mutters, "He's checking fire compliance." You blink. That man? In silk worth more than a neighborhood? Apparently, yes. In Edo, even nobility had odd summer jobs. As the street resumes its slow pulse, you feel a tug on your sleeve. A boy, not more than 10, looks up at you with solemn eyes and says, "Do you want to see something cool?" You hesitate, then nod. Of course. You follow him through a narrow alley that seems to bend in impossible ways. Past laundry lines, past a chicken that clearly has leadership ambitions, past a woman sleeping with her feet in a bucket of water. Finally, you arrive at a shadowed courtyard, enclosed on 3 sides by low buildings. In the center stands a tall bamboo structure, about the height of a 2-story house, with ropes tied at various intervals, and... Is that a trapeze? Yes. Yes, it is. You found the neighborhood's acrobatic parasol team. A small group of boys and teens is practicing under the guidance of a man whose hair defies gravity almost as well as his students do. They take turns running, jumping, flipping, and landing precariously on narrow beams while balancing paper parasols, spinning them with their fingertips like lazy cartwheels. You blink. You sweat. You blink again. One of them offers you a try. You laugh. They don't. Now you're holding a parasol, standing on a beam approximately as wide as a noodle, and regretting several life choices. The instructor barks instructions. You raise the parasol. You wobble. You flail. The kids cheer as you step down safely, backwards, and land in a water trough. They applaud politely. You bow, fully soaked. A dragonfly lands on your head and does not leave. You are now part of this memory, forever. Later, after drying off with a borrowed rice sack and regaining some dignity, you walk through the neighborhood with a sense of ease. You greet people. They greet you back. A man asks if you're the one who fell into the water. You say yes. He nods with respect. It's late afternoon now. Shadows stretch long and lazy across the cobblestones. The heat has softened. You pause under a plum tree, where a woman sells hand-woven insect nets. Not to use, just to admire. She lets you hold one. The bamboo is smooth, the netting impossibly fine. She asks if you've caught anything today. You say, a memory. She says, that's harder to keep. You keep walking. A child draws a hopscotch pattern in the dust using a wet brush. Her older brother scolds her for using calligraphy water, but she sticks out her tongue and adds a little kanji flourish to square number 5. You nod in silent approval. At a street corner, you notice a painted sign advertising a cooling remedy made from powdered pearl and plum vinegar. The vendor assures you it quiets the fire within. You buy a vial. It tastes like chalk and regret. But you smile anyway, because that's Edo. The medicine doesn't work, but the ritual does. As twilight settles in, you feel the city exhale again. Fireflies blink to life. Curtains sway. Someone lights a lantern with a taper made of rice paper and pine wax. You sit beneath a trellis of morning glory vines, their flowers now closed for the night, and sip barley tea. Someone hands you without asking. You don't know their name. They don't ask yours. But the silence between you feels like an understanding. You are here. You've danced badly. You've sweat through 2 lives worth of linen. You've been bitten, bowed to, and baptized in bathhouse water. And somehow, you've made it through another day. The sub is gone, tucked behind the black silhouette of distant rooftops. The sky bleeds slowly from navy to ink. Above you, stars begin to stitch themselves into place. Reluctant at first, then bolder, like late guests at a poetry party. You are walking again. No real destination. Just letting your sandals lead, which might be a mistake since one of them is still slightly chewed on from earlier. But Edo at night is a different creature. Softer, slower, slightly weirder. The daytime urgency has evaporated. What's left are the quiet layers, the conversations you weren't supposed to hear, the shadows that stretch too long, the laughter that echoes 1 second too late. The kind of silence that makes you believe in invisible things. You pause by a low stone wall. On the other side is a garden, not grand or noble, just humble. A few stalks of bamboo, some potted herbs, a wind chime made from a cracked teacup. You breathe in. The air smells like damp stone and warm leaves. And then you hear it, the unmistakable sound of a koto, a Japanese harp, plucked gently, slowly, like someone playing just for the moon. You follow it. It leads you through a back alley, past sleeping dogs, under rows of tide drying fish that sway like wind chimes for cats. You end up at the rear of a small tea house. The lights are low. The sound of the koto comes from within. A woman sits in the doorway, playing with the calm patience of someone who's not waiting for applause. Her fingers move like they're painting sound. A group of older men sip tea nearby, eyes half closed. One of them mutters a haiku you barely catch. Heat clings to my bones, but the music cools the dusk better than plum wine. You sit on a stone, unnoticed, or rather, politely ignored in the Edo way. To be present, yet invisible, is a kind of hospitality here. A gift. Someone hands you a cup. It's lukewarm. Possibly tea. Possibly barley water. Possibly something else entirely. You sip it anyway. A boy enters the courtyard carrying a lantern. He sets it on a low table and then begins arranging a row of tiny painted figures. Ceramic frogs, birds, and a sleepy cat. It's a festival game, someone whispers. You throw a ring and try to catch one. If you win, you get to take it home. If you lose, you get to choose a consolation candy and pretend it was your plan all along. You try. You miss. Twice. You're handed a small hard candy shaped like a turtle. The man next to you grins and says, "That one's lucky." You believe him. The musicians pause for tea. The courtyard settles into gentle murmurs. Fireflies appear again, swirling lazily around the bamboo poles like drunk lanterns. Then someone suggests telling a story. Of course they do, because this is Ghost Hour. Not horror, not fright, just presence. The ghosts of Edo aren't monsters. They're moods, memories with good timing. A woman leans in, her voice just above a whisper. She tells the story of a bridge that hums when the moon is full. Some say it's wind in the beams. Others say it's the spirit of a courtesan who once sang from that very spot, waiting for a lover who never returned. Her voice echoes through the wood. But only, the woman says, if you're not looking for it. A man counters with a tale of the ghostly rice thief, a spirit who sneaks into homes, not to haunt, but to rearrange furniture and steal exactly 1 grain of rice at a time. He's never seen, only heard, a soft rustle, a faint giggle, a single empty bowl where a full one used to be. You're not sure whether to be amused or worried. A third person shares a dream they had, being followed through the alleys by a cat that walked on 2 legs and wore a robe made of plum blossoms. No one's sure if that counts as a ghost story, but everyone nods solemnly. Historians still argue about Ito's relationship with the supernatural. Was it deep belief? Was it just elaborate metaphor? The answer, you suspect, is yes. Because in this moment, everything feels like both. You look up. The stars have multiplied. The koto begins again, slowly. A lullaby. A breeze picks up and rustles the bamboo like pages turning. You stay until the tea cools, until the last note fades, until even the ghost stories start yawning. And then, gently, you slip away, back through the alleys, past the drying fish, past the frog game, past a dog now using your other sandal as a pillow. You let him keep it. He's earned it. You walk barefoot for the rest of the way home. The dirt is warm. The night is kind. And the ghosts, they're just watching, like everyone else. Your bare feet touch the wooden threshold just as the cicadas finish their nightly concert. An abrupt silence, like a curtain falling on a summer opera. No one rehearsed, but everyone attended. You step inside. The floorboards are cool. Not cold, just pleasantly indifferent to your body heat. Your borrowed robe sticks slightly to your skin, but by now, that's simply a fact of life, like humidity or someone loudly chewing pickles on a crowded street. The house is quiet. You slip into the main room and sit near the open window, where the breeze, still carrying traces of grilled eel and sandalwood smoke, wanders through as if inspecting the guests. From here, you can see the street lanterns flickering, some still lit, others already extinguished, leaning gently as if preparing to sleep themselves. A few moths flit lazily between them, chasing their version of romance or disappointment. Probably both. Inside, a single oil lamp casts golden shadows on the paper walls. The light bends and pools across the tatami, brushing the edge of a folded futon like a hush. Your host, a woman whose age seems to shift depending on the light, sits across from you. She pours tea without speaking. It's barley again. Earthy. Familiar. The kind of drink that expects nothing from you. She smiles and nods toward the corner of the room, where a shallow box of charcoal glows faintly red. It's for the mosquitoes, she says softly, placing a stick of incense near the ember. You nod, grateful. Even the bugs in Edo have schedules. Outside, a cart rumbles past. Slow, rhythmic, and filled with what sounds like bundles of thatch or maybe fabric. The man pulling it sings under his breath, a tune so low it barely exists. It sounds like rain on a paper roof. You're too tired to ask where he's going. You sip your tea. A cricket chirps, the house creaks, and suddenly you remember. You were supposed to do something today. You don't know what it was, or if it was important, or if it even belongs to this century. But it drifts away like steam, leaving only a vague sense of permission. Permission to do nothing. To just sit. Sip. Breathe. The woman begins to speak again, this time in a tone that suggests either a story or a memory. In Edo, those are usually the same thing. She tells you about her childhood, when the city still felt new, and the alley by the bathhouse hadn't yet been paved with smooth stones. When summers felt hotter, but only because she was smaller. When ghosts were easier to see because you hadn't learned to look away yet. She remembers the old tofu man, not the current one, but his father. How he used to sing a lullaby instead of ringing a bell. How children would follow him and try to mimic the sound with combs and parchment paper. She laughs, quietly. Then she describes a night when the moon was so full it cast shadows backwards, and how she stayed up just to see if it would happen again. It didn't. But she kept the memory anyway, folded inside her like a letter never sent. Historians may never find her name. She'll never appear in textbooks or lectures or footnotes. But in this moment, sitting across from her, tea in hand and sweat still clinging to your neck like a souvenir scarf, she feels more real than any emperor or general. She finishes her tea. You do too. Then she stands, slowly, with the precision of someone who respects tatami more than gravity, and bids you good night with a bow so smooth it might as well be part of a dance. You're alone again, except you're not, because the house holds stories in its beams. The floorboards remember every step. The window frame has watched generations of people sit exactly where you're sitting now, tired, barefoot, humming slightly from the inside out. You lie down on your futon. It's still too thin, the room is still too warm, but the weight of the day settles on you like a blanket that somehow fits just right. Your eyes close. Outside, the street begins to hum with a softer rhythm, the sound of a city that never really sleeps, but knows when to whisper. And as you drift, one thought anchors itself gently in your mind. You didn't survive summer in Edo. You lived it. Barefoot, bitten, bowing awkwardly. And somehow, that was enough. You wake to the sound of sandals. Not loud, not hurried. Just the soft, rhythmic clack-clack of wooden soles on stone, like the ticking of a gentle human clock. The room is still dim. Morning hasn't fully committed yet. The light leaking through the paper walls is cool and silver, the kind of light that smells like river mist and early tea. You sit up slowly, joints creaking like temple bells. Your robe is wrinkled. Your hair, if you could see it, is probably styled like a failed woodblock print. You shuffle to the window. Outside, the city stretches. Not in a metaphorical way. People are literally stretching. A row of neighbors stands in the street, arms raised to the pale sky, bending with synchronized creaks and sighs. It's not organized. No one's barking orders. Just a morning habit. A man waves at you mid-lunge. You wave back. It's cool now, briefly. Just enough to make you believe in mornings again. The air hasn't yet remembered the word humidity. The streets are washed clean from the night's dew. Somewhere, a rooster attempts a second career as a taiko drummer. You dress and step outside. Your foot touches the stone threshold and instantly recoils. It's wet. A neighborhood cat has chosen your doorstep as its nightly commentary spot. You sidestep the puddle, nod respectfully to the cat, who ignores you, and begin your morning walk. The alley smells like pine, or perhaps damp straw. You follow your nose until it betrays you with the sudden slap of fermented bean paste drifting from a food stall just opening its shutters. A woman stirs a massive pot with a paddle that could row a fishing boat. She glances up. "You're early," she says without judgment. You nod as if this was always the plan. She hands you a cup of something hot and milky, amazeke, a sweet fermented rice drink often served to children and the criminally dehydrated. You sip. It tastes like warm rice pudding that believes in second chances. Further down the street, shopkeepers unroll bamboo blinds. One man feeds scraps of dried seaweed to a family of pigeons who clearly consider him a landlord. A child carries a paper bag filled with something. You won't say, you don't ask. You pass the corner shrine. The same one you visited nights ago, though it feels like longer. There's fresh water in the basin, a new prayer slip pinned beneath the stone. Someone has left a flower, crumpled but earnest. You bow, not out of ritual, out of rhythm. As you continue walking, the sound of wood and iron grows louder. You've reached the blacksmith street, a narrow row of forges and tool shops, each one with its own chorus of clangs, shouts, and hissing steam. Sparks fly like fireflies with ambition. An apprentice wipes his brow with a sleeve that was clean 4 hours ago. You watch as a swordsmith taps gently at a blade, his movements measured and musical. This isn't the part where sparks fly. This is the polishing stage, the moment when a weapon becomes a whisper. He doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. He's part of something older than conversation. And beside him, a woman pounding copper into ladles, a boy sharpening sickles for the market, a man fixing a broken umbrella with string, lacquer, and what looks like sheer willpower. This street is louder than the rest of Edo, but it doesn't feel rushed. The rhythm is there, steady, patient, precise. Historians debate how industrial Edo really was. On one hand, the city had thousands of craftspeople and a dizzying array of trades. On the other, no one moved particularly fast. Somehow, everything got done anyway. Maybe the secret was this. Work was an extension of breath, not a race. You stop at a stall selling handmade combs. The vendor hands you one made of boxwood, polished until it shines like honey. He says it wards off lice and heartbreak. You raise an eyebrow. Not perfectly, he admits, but better than nothing. You keep walking, past the basket shop, past the lantern maker, past a man who is definitely yelling at a chicken as if it owes him money. You reach the end of the street and find yourself back near the canal. The same water, different day. A boat passes, carrying bundles of dyed fabric that drip like rainbows into the current. A woman hangs a row of indigo cloth to dry, each one patterned like stars or waves or someone's dream. You sit beneath a willow tree, the leaves brushing your shoulders like lazy fingers. Your stomach growls a boy nearby is eating grilled rice cakes on a stick. He sees you, hesitates, then breaks one in half and offers it. You accept. The outside is crisp. The inside is soft. The flavor is smoky, with just enough soy sauce to taste like memory. You chew. He chews. Neither of you speaks. But somehow, this feels like the most complete conversation you've had since arriving. Above, the sky brightens. A breeze lifts the corner of your sleeve. Across the canal, someone releases a paper boat. Tiny, blue, wobbling bravely toward the center. And for the first time in days, you realize you haven't thought about time. You've been walking, eating, sweating, bowing, ghost spotting, fan flapping, rice sharing, and you haven't once checked the hour. Because in Edo, you live by rhythm, not by clock. It's midday, and Edo has entered its second favorite mode, strategic avoidance. The first is organized chaos. What happens during festivals, fire drills, and the occasional wandering goat. But this is the heat wave lull. Shutters close, voices lower. Even the cicadas seem to pause between their shrill declarations of summer dominance. The streets don't empty, they melt. People move, but only with the solemn grace of overcooked noodles. You find yourself drifting toward the riverfront again, because that's what everyone seems to do when there's nothing left to do but sweat in unison. Down by the water, someone strung up a makeshift shade from old festival banners. A few children have taken off their sandals and are soaking their feet in the shallows, giggling whenever something brushes past. A fish, a leaf, maybe a ghost who just wants to nap. You sit on the dock and dangle your legs over the edge. The wood is hot, but the breeze is honest. You can smell fish, riverweed, and faintly, thankfully, fresh laundry. Somewhere to your left, someone's frying tofu. To your right, someone's snoring gently against a basket of radishes. And then you hear a splash, a very intentional one. You turn to see a boy climb onto a barge and leap into the river, arms flailing with more enthusiasm than technique. He surfaces with a grin, slick hair, and absolutely zero concern for historical preservation. A second splash, then a third. Within minutes, half the neighborhood's children are swimming, or attempting to. An old man shouts from the dock, but not in anger. He just wants them to stop splashing his pickles. You lean back and watch the clouds move like stretched rice paper across the sky. A dragonfly hovers above your knee, decides you're not interesting, and moves on. You begin to wonder if you too could swim. But then you remember the river is shallow, murky, and reportedly the home of at least one retired kappa, a mischievous water spirit with a fondness for cucumbers and mischief. You decide to remain dry. For now. Behind you, someone sets up a low table and begins preparing shaved ice, kakigori. The blade squeals as it shaves the frozen block into fine, delicate piles. A bowl is handed to you without a word, topped with sweet red bean paste and a syrup that tastes like nostalgia and brain freeze. You take a bite. The cold rushes straight to the center of your skull. You squint. You shiver. You take another bite anyway, because it's worth it. A woman beside you fans herself with a sandal. In the old days, she says, we used snow from Mount Fuji, carried it in straw barrels, buried it in ice houses all year. Does that still happen? You ask. She shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe that's just what we tell the children to make their kakigori feel more magical. You like that answer. Historians still argue over Edo's ice trade. Some say it was sophisticated, seasonal snow stored in deep caves and used sparingly for high-ranking nobles. Others say it was just rumor, spun from longing and exaggeration. Either way, this shaved ice tastes legendary. You lie back, using your folded sleeves as a pillow. The dock creaks gently. You half listen to the conversations around you, a debate over the best type of plum, a recitation of a half-forgotten haiku, a child arguing with a cicada about volume control. Somewhere nearby, a bamboo flute begins to play, soft, breathy notes that hover above the heat like feathers with commitment issues. And then, from around the bend in the river, you see it, a floating stall. It's exactly what it sounds like. A man stands on a flat-bottomed boat, surrounded by snacks, trinkets, and two very annoyed ducks. He pulls himself gently along the canal, stopping to sell sesame crackers and good luck charms to those with enough coin, or enough charm to barter with compliments. You wave him down. He grunts, anchors the boat with a casual foot, and offers you a small lacquer box. Inside, a chilled dumpling, wrapped in bamboo leaf and glistening with syrup, You take it. You don't ask questions. You eat. It's perfect. The man nods once and continues on his floating route, disappearing around the curve like some kind of edible legend. Time passes. Or maybe it pauses. In Edo, that line feels blurry. The heat slows everything, but in doing so, lets you see more. Like the way the willow leaves ripple. The way laughter from across the water arrives 2 seconds late. The way a drop of syrup lingers on your lip longer than it should. You feel the day exhale again. And you exhale with it. Because this isn't tourism. This isn't history class. This is simply being. Sweaty, full, slightly sticky, and perfectly, sleepily here. Afternoon edges toward evening, like a lazy cat curling into a warm corner. It's not quite ready to go, but you can tell it's thinking about it. The light changes. It slips into that golden softness that makes even rooftops look romantic, that turns muddy water into bronze, that convinces you, for just a moment, that you might not be sweating. You are. But you believe otherwise, and that's enough. You rise from your spot on the dock, brushing imaginary crumbs from your robe, and follow a small procession of neighbors heading toward the market district. It's not a festival tonight, just a particularly active market hour. The kind that happens when everyone realizes dinner still needs ingredients, and no one wants to cook rice in a hot house. The market is alive, not loud, but vibrant. Voices roll like river stones, sharp, quick, polished by repetition. Merchants shout about miso paste and cucumbers. A fishmonger waves an octopus like a flag of intention. A woman squats beside a barrel of pickled plums, muttering something that sounds like a spell. You're pulled in immediately. There are fans with painted frogs, hand-carved toothpicks that double as chopstick rests, and flavored ice cubes sold by the half dozen, intended, you're told, to be sniffed more than chewed. You pass a vendor selling wooden sandals with bamboo soles, the kind that allegedly improve posture and humility. He gestures to your current pair, the soggy, dog-altered ones, and raises a judgmental eyebrow. You buy a new pair immediately. Your feet thank you. Your ego pretends it was already planning to do that. You turn a corner and find a small stall surrounded by children. The sign says, "For sale, whispering stones, 1 coin." Naturally, you pay up. You're handed a small, smooth river stone. The child running the booth leans in close and says, "Put it under your pillow. It'll tell you what your dreams mean." You nod solemnly. The kid grins. A future shaman, probably. Or a very persuasive liar. Either way, you feel better holding the stone. Further down the path, you come to a stand stacked with rice crackers, sweet, salty, seaweed-wrapped, chili-dusted, and one labeled simply, "Surprise." You take that one. It tastes like mustard and regret. You finish it anyway. An old woman with 10 teeth and a glorious sun hat offers you a sample of eel jerky. You hesitate. She insists. You chew. It's chewy. You give a thumbs up. She beams. You watch a short performance by a traveling entertainer, part juggler, part poet, all sweat. He balances a teacup on his head while reciting lines about summer storms and unrequited love. When he finishes, the applause is soft but sincere. He bows so deeply, his forehead nearly kisses the street. And then the smells hit you. Not all at once, layered, like brushstrokes. There's grilled corn, soy-glazed and blistered. There's fresh melon, sliced and fanned on leaves. There's something doughy sizzling in oil that you are told is a fried rice cake filled with red bean and sweet miso. You take one. It burns your tongue immediately. You don't care. Everywhere you go, people hand you things. A paper charm, a salted plum, a folded poem that says, "Heat fades, lanterns dim still, you are here." You keep it. The market begins to quiet as the sun lowers. Some stalls close. Others prepare for the evening crowd, younger, louder, perfumed with river wind and ambition. You take a seat near a fortune's booth, where an elderly man sits beneath a paper umbrella, surrounded by little wooden drawers. He gestures for you to shake a tin tube filled with sticks. You do. One slides out. He reads it, nods slowly, and says, "You are a visitor between stories." You don't ask for clarification. You don't need it. He ties the stick to a string, lets it flutter like a secret shared with the wind. A child walks by eating sweet potato candy and offers you the last bite. You accept. It tastes like endings. The lanterns above begin to glow, catching the light just right, flickering like they're exhaling with the city. You stand, stretch, and walk slowly back through the stalls, past the pickles, past the poetry, past the eel jerky that's now being aggressively pushed at a passing dog. By the time you return to your part of town, the light has gone lavender. The streets are thinner, quieter. The last breeze of the day stirs your sleeve and makes the wind chimes speak again. You hold the whispering stone a little tighter in your palm. And as you reach your doorway, your new sandals making satisfying little tonk-tonk sounds, a thought drifts into your head. You didn't just walk through the market. You drifted through a dream wrapped in salt, soy, and small kindnesses. And now, you're ready to rest. But not just yet. There's still one more light to follow. The path ahead is dim now, lit not by the sun, but by lanterns, glow bugs, and the occasional glint of light bouncing off someone's polished forehead. You follow it anyway. Because someone told you there's a tea house that only opens after sunset, hidden just beyond the last row of fish stalls, where the drinks are warm, the stories are warmer, and time gets a little lost. You find it, of course, not because of a sign, but because of the sound. Not music exactly, but something quieter. The clink of ceramic cups, the scrape of a bamboo whisk, the sigh of someone setting down the day. You pass under a low curtain embroidered with a silver crescent moon. Inside, the world softens. There are no tables, just tatami mats and cushions. The walls are made of dark wood and paper screens. The light is low, and the entire room smells faintly of roasted tea leaves, worn books, and possibly sandal oil. You take a seat. A woman in a moss-colored kimono nods at you. She doesn't ask what you want. She just leaves, then returns with a small black cup resting on a tray shaped like a ginkgo leaf. The tea is hojicha, roasted green tea with the scent like firewood and a taste like childhood, if childhood had better posture. You sip. It tastes like falling asleep next to someone reading a poem out loud. The person across from you, an old man in an indigo robe, leans forward and says, "It's best if you don't talk here." You nod. He nods. Agreement reached. You both drink. A bell chimes softly in the distance. Someone somewhere is ringing a wind gong. A cat slinks by, pausing to stare at you with disdain, before curling up next to a sleeping musician's drum. On one wall is a scroll with a single character, Yugen, an idea so subtle it can't be fully translated. Something about grace, mystery, the beauty of what's unsaid. You look at it for a long time, or maybe not long at all. It's hard to tell in a room where the clock gave up centuries ago. The tea woman returns, this time with a rice cracker topped with yuzu zest. It crunches exactly once. The flavor unfolds slowly, like a letter you're afraid to finish reading. It's a strange thing, sitting in silence, surrounded by strangers, each of you tucked inside your own quiet. But it feels safe. It feels like belonging, minus the effort. The woman pours more tea. This time, she whispers something as she sets the cup down. Tonight is the last night of the Firefly Peak. You blink. She's already gone. You finish the tea, bow slightly, and step back out into the night. And she's right. The fireflies are everywhere. Not just blinking, but dancing. Tiny golden lanterns spinning in slow arcs, rising and falling with the grace of forgotten lullabies. Children run through them with cupped hands and held breath. Adults sit on steps and don't bother pretending to be unimpressed. You walk toward the river again, where a small crowd has gathered. No fanfare, no music, just people sitting, watching. Someone hands you a glass float with a tiny candle inside. No explanation. You take it, light it, and carry it to the edge of the water. One by one, the floats are set adrift. Lanterns bobbing on the surface, drifting downstream like slow-moving prayers. Some carry names, others drawings. Yours? You quietly slide the whispering stone inside before releasing it. It floats perfectly. You watch it until the wind carries it just far enough that you can no longer tell which one is yours. Historians rarely mention things like this. The unofficial rituals, the wordless ceremonies, the shared silences between strangers at the end of hot, ordinary days. They document policies, fires, architecture, diets. But not this. This gentle moment, lit by river light and insects and a single bowl of roasted tea, belongs to memory. Not textbooks. Someone sneezes in the distance. You smile. You sit by the riverbank, pull your knees up, and let the soft hum of Edo's twilight sink into your bones. There are no more tasks, no appointments, just the steady, living hush of a city that somehow knows when to slow down. You're not a visitor anymore. You're a firefly. You're a bowl of tea. You're a whisper on the river. And tonight, finally, you are still. You don't remember falling asleep on the riverbank, but when you wake, your cheek is pressed against a warm patch of grass, and someone's draped a faded linen cloth over your shoulders. It smells like cedar and tea smoke. The air is cool, just enough to remind you that night doesn't last forever, even in a place that feels like it should. You sit up slowly. The river still flows, quiet and glassy. The lanterns are mostly gone now, burned out or floated too far to see. Just a few remain, bobbing near the shore like sleepy stars that haven't gotten the memo. The fireflies have faded too, but that's okay. Everything has slowed to a near halt, even the city. You wander back through the narrow alleys, the ones you now know without thinking. Past the plum seller's stall, closed but still fragrant. Past the paper fan shop, a single lantern sways above the entrance. Past the steps where two cats are playing an invisible game with absolutely no rules. And then you see it. A gathering in front of a small community hall. Unmarked, humble, half hidden by a curtain of wisteria. Inside, shoes line the floor like quiet punctuation. You take yours off, add them to the pile, and step in. It's a storytelling night. The kind that doesn't happen every week, or even every month, but only when the heat lingers just right, and everyone's too tired to argue. You take a seat near the back. The room is warm, dim, filled with the low scent of incense and wood polish. The walls are paper thin, and the voices within are careful not to disturb the houses next door. You can hear the hush in everyone's breath, like something sacred is about to happen, but no one wants to call it that out loud. The storyteller is a man so old, his robe might be older than you. His beard flows like waterfall mist. His voice is soft like footsteps on rice paper. He begins. Once there was a woman who never opened her shutters. She lived in Edo her entire life, but only ever saw it in reflections. Water, polished trays, the shine in a tea bowl. You close your eyes. The story continues. It's not about heroes, not about emperors or war. It's about a boy who delivered tofu to the wrong house and met a ghost who didn't know she was dead. About a fishmonger who could predict the weather by how the clams yawned. About a girl who left notes inside rice balls and became a local legend. Everyone listens. Everyone breathes slower. This is not history. Not the way books tell it. It's memory passed sideways. You think of everything you've seen so far. The fire buckets, the bathhouses, the old women arguing over pickles, the cats with complex emotional arcs. You think of sandals ruined by puddles, poems written in chalk, dances done with the elegance of falling laundry. And you realize, this is how Edo remembers itself. In whispers, in steam, in stories told at night when the air is still, and no one's pretending anymore. The old man finishes. The room remains quiet. Then a bell chimes gently. A cue to stand. Bow. Shuffle out. You step outside again. The sky has changed once more. Indigo bleeding into early morning gray. Birds beginning to stir. A dog stretches dramatically near a card of newspapers that haven't yet been invented. You walk aimlessly, because you can. You pass the old tofu seller. Yes, already awake, and he grins when he sees you. "You're still here?" he asks, as if you might have evaporated like so many dreams. You nod. He nods back, then hands you a warm square of tofu wrapped in a leaf. "No charge," he says. "Just don't let the ghosts eat it first." You promise nothing. You sit by a low wall, nibbling the tofu as dawn tiptoes over the roof lines. A paper kite from yesterday's festival hangs limp from a tree branch, its string tangled but somehow beautiful in the way old mistakes sometimes are. Someone sweeps a path that doesn't need sweeping. Someone starts boiling tea you'll never drink. Someone laughs softly in the next street over, and you don't even wonder why. You just sit, and in that moment, surrounded by silence that isn't empty, you understand something else. Edo didn't need you to visit. It didn't need you to understand it, survive it, or even remember it perfectly. It just needed you to be here. For a while. To breathe with it, to sweat with it. To bow to its rhythms and walk its alleys without asking too many questions. And now you're part of the story too. The city is yawning, not in laziness, but in rhythm. Edo never truly sleeps, but it stretches between moments, like ink between brushstrokes. And you're walking through one of those quiet in-betweens now, when the street is neither yesterday nor today, when the sky hasn't made up its mind. You pass a row of drying laundry that sways like whispered advice. A man carrying fresh soba noodles balances the tray on his head while sipping from a cup of cold tea. A woman sweeps the same patch of street over and over, not because it's dirty, but because the motion feels like a memory. You nod to them. They nod back. There's no need for words anymore. You belong to the silence now. Your path leads you toward a small rise overlooking a community garden, hidden between two long houses and fenced with split bamboo. It's modest, nothing dramatic. A few squash plants, climbing beans, a row of eggplants, fat and glossy. Some morning glories creep along the fence, still closed from the night, but stretching. You sit on a flat rock, warmed by the residue of yesterday's sun, and close your eyes. And suddenly, you're not tired. You're light, like your breath has loosened something you didn't realize you were carrying. The weight of modernity, of clocks, of keeping up, of needing to make everything count. Here, the only thing that counts is the rice harvest, and the occasional eel incident. A child skips by humming something that sounds like a song and a question at once. She stops, plucks a small leaf, hands it to you, and says, "This is for shade," before running off again with absolutely no follow-up. You put the leaf in your hair. It does nothing, but it feels important. From this little perch, you see the whole neighborhood begin its day in careful choreography. Shutters sliding open, tea kettles steaming, a neighbor watering her porch tiles just to cool the air. It's a gesture so small it's almost a poem. Further down the street, a merchant unrolls his goods, woodblock prints depicting famous actors and landscapes. One catches your eye. It's a scene of the Sumida River at dusk, the lanterns floating just like the ones you released. And there, in the corner, is a tiny figure standing near the shore. Their face is smudged, unfinished, anonymous. It looks like you. You smile, unsure if it's a coincidence or something older at work. A soft chime rings behind you. You turn to find an old woman standing with a tray of folded cloths and sachets. She offers you one. "For the journey," she says. "Smells like citronella and sandalwood. Keeps the bugs and the bad dreams away." You accept it with both hands. As you tuck it into your sash, she adds, "Sleep with it under your pillow. Not too close. Dreams get greedy." You're not sure what she means. You're also not sure you need to know. She walks away, vanishing around a corner with the quiet finality of a closing paragraph. You wander back to the house. The streets are bright now, but still soft, like the city knows you're on your way out and doesn't want to make it harder than it already is. Back at the doorstep, the cat is waiting. Still judging. Still perched. You bow to it. It blinks once, slowly, then turns away as if to say, "We're done here." Inside, your belongings are exactly where you left them, minus one sandal, probably donated to a dog's spiritual journey. Your robe smells like river water and festival smoke. Your fan is still bent. Your whispering stone is gone, still floating downriver, carrying whatever it heard from your dreams. You sit one last time in the doorway, sipping the final cup of tea left by your host. She doesn't say goodbye. She doesn't need to. Because Edo doesn't end. It just folds you into its layers, its smoke, its dust, its laughter, its plum pickles, and lets you drift. You bow, once to the room, once to the garden, once to yourself, and then you rise and step into the light. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because there's something sacred about leaving deliberately, about making sure your footprints remember the road. You head toward the eastern gate, the one framed by willows and rice fields, the one travelers use when they're not in a hurry to return, but still want to remember how. Along the way, Edo says goodbye in its own way, quietly, without ceremony, with 100 small gestures that you almost miss. A man bows to you while balancing 2 buckets of soy. A girl waves from a window, then hides behind a curtain, peeking like a lantern flame. A street musician you'd seen 3 nights ago, yes, the one with the off-tune flute, nods from across the bridge, mid-song. His melody follows you like a frayed ribbon caught in the breeze. You pass the tofu shop, now closing for the midday break. The vendor sees you, disappears briefly, and returns with a wrapped parcel, a single square of tofu, still warm, resting on a leaf. "For the road," he says. "You survived." You smile. "Barely," he laughs. "That's how it works." Further down, a procession clatters past. Not a festival this time, just a group of laborers carrying bundles of wood to repair a roof that collapsed in the rain. One of them recognizes you from the bathhouse and waves with the kind of grin that says, "I remember how red your face got in the hot pool." You wave back, mortified and oddly proud. You stop briefly at a small stand run by an elderly woman who sells nothing but bookmarks. Slivers of paper, cloth, thin wood, even pressed leaves, all inscribed with single lines of poetry or loose proverbs. You pick one that says, "To leave is to carry something that didn't exist before." You tuck it into your sleeve, where it rustles softly like a secret. At the edge of town, a small tea pavilion sits under a maple tree. You're not thirsty, but you pause anyway. A boy inside hands you a cup, nods solemnly, then promptly goes back to writing something on the floor in chalk. You sip. It's green tea, bitter, honest. The chalk reads, "The sky is a bowl, the wind is a spoon." You resist the urge to ask questions. Edo doesn't do clarifications. As you resume your walk, you pass a final row of houses. These are simpler, fewer flowers in the windows, more tools by the doors. Real lives, not scenery. An old man sits carving a comb. He hums a song with no melody. A woman rolls a mat out to dry, slapping the dust in time with her own heartbeat. A chicken pecks at something it clearly doesn't understand. And just before the path widens into open road, a small child walks up to you. She doesn't say anything, just opens her hand. Inside is a pebble, round, smooth, warm from her grip. She places it in your palm, then she walks away. No bow, no explanation. You stare at the pebble. It doesn't whisper, but you understand it anyway. You cross the threshold of the eastern gate. The wind feels different now. Not colder, but wider, like a stretch of space you forgot existed. You glance back once. The rooftops, the smoke trails, the sleeping cats, the paper fans, the koto song echoing through your chest, even though it hasn't played in hours. You take a breath that tastes like everything. Soy, river water, sandalwood, pickled plums, roasted tea, and the faint aftertaste of your own awe. And as your feet carry you forward, you don't just leave Edo. You carry it. In your sandals, in your sleeves, in your pulse. You keep walking. Not fast, not slow, just enough to feel the earth beneath your sandals with every step. The way you did that first morning, though you didn't notice it then. You were still too busy adjusting your robes. Swatting invisible insects, looking for meaning in smells you didn't yet understand. Now you let the wind lift your sleeve. Now you let the cicadas speak without interrupting. Now you know, Edo doesn't shout. It hums. The path bends gently through farmland. Paddies shimmer with water, reflecting the sky like held breath. A farmer in the distance raises a hand. You raise yours. He doesn't ask where you're going. No one does. Edo's people understand that going is just another form of being. You stop under a tree, a persimmon, fruit not yet ripe, and sit on a stump smoothed by countless others who stopped for the same reason. Not exhaustion, not ceremony, just pause. You pull the bookmark from your sleeve. You unfold the linen cloth from your shoulder. You look at the smooth pebble in your hand, no longer just a child's gift, but a weight that says, "You were here." These aren't souvenirs. They're syllables from a language only summer teaches. And now it's time. You close your eyes. The breeze is warm against your face. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rings. Not urgent, not sharp. Just a single tone. You think about everything. The paper walls, the tofu carts, the slow parade of lanterns, the way even the ghosts were polite, the way nothing was perfect, but everything was present. And slowly, gently, the details begin to fade, not vanish, but soften, like a painting left out in the sun. The sweat dries, the river hushes, the footsteps dissolve. Even the fireflies know when to dim. So let go now. Let the weight of memory all hold you like a futon after a long, long walk. Let the hum of Edo carry you past the gates and into the dream. You're safe. You're warm. You are still.